Today we're driving around in this current generation Lexus GX550 in the Mojave Desert to talk about a big fear that everybody has in the Toyota Lexus world. And that is, they fear that the next generation of turbocharged 4Runners and Lexus GXs will not be reliable. This is a bit of a series. If you want to check out what I'm talking about, check out the last two descending videos under this one. But bottom line is this: people are scared of the turbos. Turbos are coming for the 4Runner and the GX of the next generation, specifically the 2024 model 4Runners and GXs. And people are scared of these turbos. They don't feel they're going to be reliable. In the last two videos, we already covered that Toyota's not new to turbos. They've actually been making turbocharged engines, turbo diesel, since 1982, which are still in production today. In addition, those engines have already been known to go millions of miles, and they're even in the flagship vehicles such as the Toyota Land Cruiser in the world market. So Toyota being new to turbos is not new. Not at all. That's a misconception. Now, as far as the wastegate issue that people claim happened on the Tundra, that's been solved. That wasn't a wastegate issue. That wasn't a turbo issue. That was a manufacturing or assembly issue specific to one Texas plant. It's been solved. It's done. It's good to go. Now, today's video is going to focus on something more important and more interesting about the turbo anxiety surrounding the next gen 4Runner and GX, and that is the historical context of Toyota proving people wrong. So in a nutshell, today I really want to focus on something that people forget, and they always forget this. In modern times, it's actually amazing that people don't remember this, because it seems like just yesterday Toyota was getting a lot of criticism for daring to make a V8 engine. Yes, today I'm going to talk about what people have already forgotten, and that is the legendary Toyota V8 engine, of which this car that I'm driving in now, the 2021 Lexus GX460 with its V8 engine, it's based upon this original V8 engine. Now, what V8 engine am I talking about? The 1UZ engine that debuted in the 1989 Lexus LS. In other words, Lexus's flagship. The engine that made Lexus what it is today was once an engine that everybody said you can't do. There's no way you can have a Japanese V8 engine. It won't work. It won't last. It's a gimmick. Nobody has made V8 engines last. And that's the same sentiment we're having today with the next generation of turbos. The critics will say, everybody knows you can't make a turbo last. They make too much heat. A gasoline turbo makes more heat than a diesel turbo, so it's going to burn up the turbos, and there's no way, it hasn't been done, nobody can do it, blah, blah, blah. But you have to realize, historical context again, if we go back to the mid-1980s, Toyota was faced with the same criticism. Let's bring it back to that time. Let's bring it back to when the Lexus LS debuted in 1989, and critics clearly stated that you can't make a V8 engine last. Why? The same reason people say about discount a reliable turbo today. In other words, they said a V8 engine makes too much power. It's too high compression. It's too stressed. It's too powerful. You can't make a V8 engine last. Especially so when the critics heard that Toyota, Lexus, dared to say they were going to make this new V8 engine out of aluminum. All aluminum. Not just the block, not just the cylinder head, but they were going to dare make an all aluminum V8 engine. Okay, a V8 engine made out of soda cans. Okay, everybody laughed at it. There's no way it's going to last as long as a big block Chevy or Ford V8 engine, which, by the way, and again, let's bring it back to the 80s. During that phase, there was no such thing as a V8 engine that lasts longer than 120,000 miles. You're lucky to get 100,000 miles out of a Ford, Chevy, or European V8 engine, and that was it. They were throwaway, cheap thrills engines. You could not make a reliable V8 engine. At least that was the sentiment back then. There's no way you could make a 200,000 mile, 300,000, million mile V8 engine. Well, guess what Toyota did? They put out this V8 engine in the LS, the 1UZ engine, and they proved everybody wrong. Not only did it work, not only was it quiet, not only was it powerful, but it is still on the road today. And the iterations of that engine are in this vehicle right now. The same engine that everybody loves on this current generation Lexus, these naturally aspirated V8s. And they claim the next gen turbos won't be as reliable. But it's just yesterday that people were saying this V8 engine, or its grandfather, was a joke, that there's no way they could do it. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and that is Toyota naysayers, or naysayers that think Toyota can't do it with turbo engines. And we're going to relate that again to these this V8, the history of the V8 in this vehicle, because we have the same exact thing going on today. Now let's talk about how Toyota solved the problem. In other words, back in the 80s, you can't do a V8 engine, you can't make it last, blah, blah, blah. And Toyota just knocked it out of the box with their LS1UZ engine that we've been talking about. Now, how did they do it? Simple. Toyota is a very disciplined and conservative company. The engineers were faced with a task. They said, make it work. Simple as that. Make a V8 engine that lasts forever. And the engineer said, well, nobody's done that before, blah, blah, blah. And Toyota said, that's nice, make it work. And so what the engineers did, and this is the Toyota way, is go out and make something and try to break it. Then, if it breaks, fix it. And then try to break it again. Rinse and repeat until it's no longer breaking. That is the Toyota Kaizen principle, continual improvement. Toyota employs that engineering concept. Go out and break it, and then make it not break until it can't break. That's what that's their engineering business model, essentially. I don't have an articulate way to say it, but I've literally, this video's out there on YouTube where the Japanese engineers are going, we go out and break it and break it and break it till it won't break again. That's how they made the million-mile 1UZ V8 engine that built the Lexus reputation. Now, what in the world do you think engineers were faced with these new turbos, the Turbo V6 and the inline 4 turbo that are coming out on the next gen 4Runner and GX? You guessed it. The same Kaizen principle, which says make it work. And the engineers said the same thing. Nobody's ever made a turbo last this long. And the Toyota chief engineers and the executives said, that's nice, make it work anyway. And so they employed the same principles of going out, breaking it, and rinse and repeat until they got a turbo that would last. Now, can I prove this? Of course not. I haven't seen the turbos. Nobody's seen the turbos last this long. They're brand new. I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody does to go in the future back. What we do have is our intelligence, and more importantly, we have the historical context of Toyota itself, which is a very conservative company, which brings with very conservative engineers. And let's talk about engineers for a second, because I think a lot of the masses, it doesn't matter what country you're in, they tend to think of automotive engineers as not really a thing. Like, they don't exist. Like, there's just, the engineers are just a bunch of drunk guys that they found hanging around, behind the Dollar General, smoking doobies, like Chris Farley once said. And they come in drunk to work at 3 o'clock and come into the Toyota corporate office and go, let's just throw a turbo in it, yeah. And everybody's drinking and smoking, and let's just put turbo in it. Yeah, we'll just, okay, there we go, I got a turbocharger. I think a lot of people think that's how Toyota engineers work. Now, in their defense, it's fair to say that their apprehension or cynicism or jadedness is somewhat warranted in American culture, because GM invented planned obsolescence. So Americans specifically have a bad taste in their mouth because companies like General Motors created planned obsolescence. That's a fact. They engineered cars to break, so you'd have to keep buying them. However, it must be noted, again, historical context of Toyota, they actually follow the polar opposite. The Kaizen principle, continual improvement, and their reputation is built on reliability, conservative reliability at that. They don't take any risks. On top of that, they're not just one of the most conservative automotive companies in the world, they're one of the most conservative companies in general in the world, and they are a global giant based on this strict conservatism and proving critics wrong by simply having strict and brutal engineering standards of simply make it work. So that's what we have to remember, that Toyota has a history of proving people wrong. It's completely forgotten. As I cruise in the middle of this Mojave Desert in a V8 Japanese engine that at one time I remember people saying it shouldn't exist, it will break, it's made out of aluminum cans, it'll crack, the block will crack, the cylinders will crack, everything will crack, a V8's more stress, all that stuff we talked about earlier. That's now history, and everybody loves these Toyota and Lexus V8 engines. But that was once exactly where we were with these new turbos now. So I understand the apprehension, and the apprehension is fair, especially when we take it in the context of GM's planned obsolescence shenanigans that they still continue with today. However, that's simply not Toyota. I remember back in the day, well, let's just say 10 years after those LSs came out, people were dumping those cars at 60, 70,000 miles. The original buyers of those LSs with their V8 engines, they were dumping them at 60,000 miles, 70,000 miles for pennies on the dollar, because they were like, it's a V8 engine, it's 70,000 miles, you better get rid of it before it breaks on you. Little did they know that they would go for 1,000,000 miles, and people picked those up quite cheap and got a great value. So anecdotal evidence, of course, but please consider the historical context of Toyota solving unsolvable engineering problems before you buy into apprehension over their next-gen turbocharged engines that will be on your 4Runner and GX. Can I prove it again? Nobody can. Is it highly probable that Toyota solved this problem? Yes. Can they admit it? That, hey, we solved the problem, we tested to 1,000,000 miles? I'm sure their lawyer said no. But you know, and you're more intelligent to know, that the company that bought you this bulletproof V8 engine that you love so much is going to do the same thing with turbos. But you got to keep it in the context. This won't make any sense unless you take your mind back to 1989 when everybody said the same thing about this V8 engine, which is, it's not going to work, it's not going to last, nobody's done it before. That's the same thing people are saying about the turbos right now. Time will tell. If you found this video helpful, please remember to like and sub. Thank you, and have a great day.